Hello, I'm John Weez, a computer science major at the University of Cincinnati, and today I'll be talking about my senior design project, Excavator Simulator VR. This project was advised by Kyle Hartshorn, a project manager at Kinetic Vision. The image to the right is the main game art used to promote this project. I just thought it was pretty cool. Project goals. I set my goals fairly high for this project because I felt like it was a grand finale of my college studies. I wanted to push myself and learn the process of designing, implementing, testing, and publishing a real playable game on the game library Steam. This game had to be a virtual reality application that allows users to operate a 90-ton excavator. The excavator would also need to mimic real-world physics and also allow users to react with the surrounding environment. Since this would be my first large, publicly released game, I would also need to learn how to manage such a large project given the 12-week timeline. It was also estimated that around 100 hours of work would be sufficient to complete the project, which in hindsight was an understatement. Pictured to the right is a screenshot of the initial milestones. Notice how many weeks were given for development time colored in blue. It was about a 2 month of pure development time, and this was later shortened down to just a month and a half or so. Lastly, I set about a $200 budget for this project. This included any assets I would need to buy and the Steam fee that you have to pay to get your game up on Steam. Intellectual merits. While working on prototypes to make this game, I was using the correct systems and solutions. It was discovered that everything does not go to plan. Even something as simple as making virtual joysticks took way longer than expected because different types of VR controllers change the way that you hold a virtual joystick. Some orient the controllers downward a little bit, some orient it up, so you can't always have a joystick position the same for every controller. A more general solution had to be implemented so that any user can use the virtual joysticks. Another major learning curve was that the optimization could never be pushed off. When it was pushed off for just even a week or two, refactoring and implementation had to take place, and this wasted time. Optimization needed to be in the back of my mind the whole development time, since VR needs to run very smooth for a user not to feel nauseous. I also learned through testing and user feedback that having particles appear while digging improved the immersion of the user. Users sit in a slightly different location every single time, and the head position and seat position needed to be adjusted accordingly. So I created this seat adjustment system. As you can see in this image to the right, you're able to adjust your seat left to right and up and down. Project border impacts. Many other excavator simulators are not publicly available or require some custom hardware with complex setups. Some of them have even required 6 or 7 monitors just to run the simulator. The main impact of this was to provide a more accessible excavator simulator to the public. This application only requires VR devices that work with Steam VR applications, which are fairly common nowadays when users want to use VR. The other impact that this application has is it allows users to gain knowledge about operations of large excavators. This includes learning multiple control patterns or ways of operating heavy machinery. The simulator also allows users to experiment and have fun if they wish to step off the tutorial paths. The image below shows how a user within the main menu level can interact with the menu and see their virtual hands. They are also able to choose from the 3 tutorial levels, and if they really want to, they can go back to the main menu. This high-level design diagram shows the design behind the application. The diagram pictured to the right shows the update order of the application, and the basic idea of this design structure is to gather all user inputs, display those inputs to the user for virtual feedback, and then show the interaction to the virtual world. This Unity game loop, pictured in blue, runs every frame at about 90 frames per second if the hardware can keep up. It is important that the application only performs actions when the user expects those actions, because if any input or terrain modification is delayed, it will break the emergence factor. Quickly running through the diagram, starting at the top pink block, shows that each level loads in terrain and level object, and until those are both loaded, the user is given a loading screen. Next, the game loop starts by checking the Steam VR for user input data. Then all input is handled via the menu interactions or virtual handle or joystick movements. Depending on how the user moved, the terrain is deformed before the excavator movement to prevent clipping. The excavator now moves and other level logic is applied to determine if the tutorial is complete or has been failed. Finally, there is a check to see if the game should quit to the desktop. Technologies used. I ended up using many technologies throughout the development lifecycle. Unity was also used for the game engine, so all scripts were written in C#. GitHub was used to track code changes, issues, and milestones for the project. Blender was used to modify excavator parts for aesthetics and optimization purposes. There are also a few plugins used within Unity to speed up the development process. Some of these included SteamVR, Ultimate Terrains, Physical Tank Treads, and a few other minor plugins. Real-time physics were also used to simulate the excavator weight and movement. The final results. I was able to create a fully playable and purchasable Steam game that users can download and play today. A very optimized VR game that should be able to run on minimum VR-ready hardware. 3 tutorial levels were created showcasing the basic functionality of an excavator, but still allowing users to explore the world wherever they wanted to. A real-time terrain deformation system was made that generates and absorbs particles, giving a more immersion factor. This allows for more dynamic levels and opportunities that would not be possible with a simple texture map. And finally, I was able to create virtual joysticks and levers that feel real or natural to the user within VR. I was pretty happy on how they turned out. The VR controls shown in the left image were how a user can interact with joysticks and grab a controller. Once a control is grabbed, they are able to move the control around to move the virtual joystick just like real world. The image to the right shows how dynamic terrain and digging systems interact with each other to create a more dynamic terrain. You can also see that the dirt actually has mass and impacts the excavator physics, creating a more immersive feeling of weight. Some challenges and how I overcame them. The planned deadline was moved up, so the scope also had to be reduced. The allocated project time that I set aside for this project was kind of reduced by 60% since some other schoolwork was more than expected. Between those two challenges, the project scope was reduced to just creating 3 tutorial levels. Performance issues were also a constant battle, so time was put into creating optimized geometry, shaders, and terrain systems. The publishing of Steam also took a lot longer than expected due to the amount of art assets and processes needed to be learned and published. The original budget of $200 worked well until a few better options were discovered, so the final budget ended up being around $300, with only about a third of that spent on research. The game is also being sold on Steam for $4.99 in an attempt to recover some of those costs. The future of this project. I would like to refine the excavator movement in hydraulic simulation to provide a more realistic experience instead of a game-like experience. The ability to pinch objects with the hydraulic thumb would also be a nice addition and would provide more tutorial levels. Adding the scope that was cut out from this project, like building a pond level, would also give the game more content. And lastly, I would like to keep fixing and improving this game on Steam so that more users can enjoy and purchase the game. You can also check out the Steam page by visiting the link in the bottom left corner. Feel free to contact me with any questions. Thank you.